Te mai ki Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod after the All Blacks beat Ireland. Well, the Irish were leaving early. They were leaving early from the stadium for this big grudge match. They turned up big expectations in Ireland. They went home without a win. The All Blacks carried on with a mighty set piece, good defence and enough tries and goal kicks to leave with that win. So we'll get plenty into that. Joseph Suali'li from Australia, is that the best rugby debut in history? The guy hadn't even played a first-class game before. We'll get into that. The Boks and Scotland Springboks, #1 in the world again after picking up that win. Fiji beating Wales. Wales are in a bad place. And of course, all of your questions which go towards getting one of these Players Sports balls. So, plenty to get into, including a new guest this week. Perfect for talking Aussie versus England, because he loves both of them.
Big fan, huge fan.
It's Joe Wheeler. And of course, Jipper over here on the side. A tight forward fest because the All Blacks, Jipper, their set piece was really strong.
Well, we're in the north, so you do need more tight forwards at this time of the year. Bryn just gets bumped at the back of the rucks, as we saw in a number of the games.
Yeah, it was a tough go at the back of the rucks, actually. Cortez Ratama was having a tough time.
He did have a tough night of it, and I think credit to the Irish, actually. They pushed that law to the absolute limit and probably got away with a lot.
Cost them a bit, though, as well.
It did, but I also go, yeah, the penalty count was, you know, they did get penalised a lot, but they probably could have doubled that. And they did get away with a lot more. But I think for Cortez, definitely the learnings around the box kicking game and the pressure that they put on him and the time that he took. I think we saw when Cam came on, he sped the game up. He didn't stand over the ruck like we've seen Cortez do. So I think good learnings for Cortez. But for the Irish, I think they did make a little bit of a mess of the All Blacks ball, and that was probably down to some pretty handy defence at times, which made it a tough job for the All Blacks to keep that momentum going. Which, as we know, Jip, when you get a good carry, good clean, that makes the halfback's job that much easier.
Oh, massively. But, I mean, so many of the times it's, you know, you're waiting for that call, so it's not necessary, and sometimes you don't want to put yourself in that position. You saw it a lot in the Scotland-South Africa game as well. South Africa's ball was massively disrupted with bodies falling back on top of them and not allowing their game to flow. So I just think maybe it's a new tactic that the North probably a little bit more accustomed to than the Southern Hemisphere sides, but all of them got through, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, I did see a little meme saying there's a fine line between victory and defeat, and it's the equator.
We just thought, well, you know what makes me nervous though, is we went up there humble. We just don't need to get too cock-a-hoot too quickly. Let's just keep our powder very dry. Because they could turn so quickly.
Yeah. But it was a good weekend for the Southern Hemisphere teams. Particularly, let's focus on the All Blacks v Ireland, because there was a lot expected of Ireland in particular, with all of those wins on the trot at home. The All Blacks going up there had a bunch of games under their belts. How much do you think we take into account the fact that Ireland were rusty? Considering that team had played together so often, had been to Portugal for a camp, they knew exactly what was coming.
I'm a little bit... I don't know, it's an impressive victory from this All Black side. Don't take anything away from it. I think going over there at Aviva Stadium, we know how tough that place is to win. And the record speaks for itself, the way this Irish side has gone about their work over the last few years. And I think for the All Blacks, they've been guilty of being clunky as well throughout the season. And it hasn't been a consistent growth in the game. But what I think we saw was they found a way to manipulate this Irish side into ways to figure out what we need to do. And other than the 10 minutes that Geordie was in the bin, I thought we looked really comfortable. I wasn't nervous at all, Jip, throughout that game. And normally I sit there against the Irish going, with their attack, going, geez, they could break us at any time because they've got multiple threats, but they just looked clunky. It looked like that they just hadn't had that rhythm that we're so used to seeing. Yeah,
and I think the one thing I took out of it is probably the most measured this All Black side look emotionally. You know, in terms of we're going for the points, we're not going to the corner. You know, 11 line breaks to 1, so their attack did break down normally a very solid defence, but you'd normally look at that and go 11 to 1, man, that we probably should have put on more tries. But for the most part, it was due to a penalty. Once we got them behind the line, a penalty was given away at the breakdown, and they took the 3. And it was I felt like it was a little bit of a different tactic. It was a much more, I suppose, less risky approach in terms of that scoreboard pressure. But I think they knew the emotion of the occasion, the crowd, and trying to take them out of it by getting that scoreboard pressure. And obviously with how accurate Damian's kicking. I don't know, I just felt like it was such a composed approach. And I'm not saying the Irish weren't, but they looked a little bit more emotional, like everything was a massive win or a massive moment, versus the All Blacks would get a win and then they'd be like, okay, what's our next job?
29 missed tackles, I think, the Irish, something like that.
Which is massive.
Massive for them. And you go, when they made those mistakes, they made those errors, they looked frantic.
Yeah.
They weren't calm and considered, and they actually, piggybacked the All Blacks into the game with their poor discipline. Whereas the All Blacks, on the other hand, bar Geordie Barrett's 2 penalties, I think we gave away 5 penalties. Like really,
to the week before.
Yeah, really accurate. I was still giving a yellow card away, which is disappointing, but. Geez, 5 penalties in a test match, that's impressive.
And probably the difference, but like that's what I'm trying to say is like rather than like as I normally do as a code head, get into the technical aspects of it.
Oh, give it to me.
I just felt emotionally they just seemed level. Like there was no, and I know it's been well documented how, some Irish players, really got them behind a few of their big results. And I don't think that's the end of the world, but I don't know, the All Blacks were just next job, one foot in front of the other, and just really wore them down. But that belief and that composure, I felt, wore them down and frustrated the Irish a little bit.
Which is impressive from an All Black team with,
that amount of pressure.
And the youth of that team as well, Jip. Like you take Cody Taylor and Beauden Barrett out of that side, 200 test caps easily between the two of them, and you bring in Asafo Moore and Damian McKenzie, who hasn't been playing well, and put them into those roles in a spine to lead this side. Man, that was impressive. It was a really considered, calm performance that was just super accurate, I think.
And I think it justifies Sam Cane's selection and Sam Cane starting, because if whenever those young men, and I think it was Wallace Atiti on one occasion, made a mistake and his head went down, you saw Sam Cane straight, came up to him, touched on the shoulder, he goes, mate, it's all right, next job. That sort of level of experience, that calmness, that composure, that belief of someone. We spoke about Sam Cane, Pete O'Mahony and their aura in a shed and how they can calm you down and compose you. I thought Sam was massive in terms of keeping that temperament at that level.
I'm sure if you go around that All Black side at the moment and you go, who do you love playing with alongside, I reckon he'd be in your top 3 every day of the week, Sam Cane, of all the players. Like, just the guy that you love going to war with, that you know he's going to have your back in any moment. And that, you saw it in so many occasions, just that cool head. Yeah, you can't buy that.
But it allows Scott to be the best version of him as
exactly,
well.
And I think,
that balance of leaders on the field.
I
thought Damian was very, composed, very calculated, and when am I going, when am I not? Like, when he was going to the line, it was like, man, there was an acceleration, injection of pace and belief in what he was trying to achieve. Same from the backfield. And then when he was just trying to, kick for territory or set up outside, he created that depth, he created that separation to draw the defenders out, to create time and space. It was just a very, very meticulous performance.
I like the way that Damian was direct in his running when he took it to the line.
Massive.
So often he's not, and you feel like everyone around him is adapting. They knew where he was going. He pinned his ears back, he went at a half goal, got tackled and allowed for a quick ruck and those kind of things. It was a change from Damian.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the catalyst for
I think it's simplified
either.
a thought though.
Yeah,
they obviously just stripped the menu back, and I just felt like it was like, it's either carry or we're trying to get out of here.
Yeah.
That's it. And Damian, this is your weapon. Go to line, go flat, we'll get bodies in motion. And it creates, I don't know, it just seemed very, very cool, calm, but well prepared. I suppose the whole 23 were across the plan. And I think no halfback looking to go for a quick tap was always a good sign, especially when a penalty happens.
Set piece functioning perfectly as well. Like that makes a huge difference for a 10, right? You can go back to that and you're going to be able to put the team in the right areas of the field. But he took the right options as well, Jip.
On the set piece though, just on that, do you not think like our line-out defence is starting to become a bit of a weapon?
Oh mate, how good is it?
We're absolutely, like when we did it against South Africa, I was like, man, this is a growth in our game, and you saw Wallace Atiti and Tupou Vaa'i getting like massive steals, but it just keeps getting better and better, and it is so disruptive. How frustrating if you can't win your line out and then backs are looking at forwards going, can't get us the front, mate. The pressure just, and that expectation.
You can't trust that. You can't go to your safety.
You've got to go for quick throws that may put you into, trouble position. I mean, you remember the quick throw in Wellington that led to the Springboks scoring. All those sorts of things compound that pressure, and I suppose, it was nice for the All Blacks in particular with a lot of experience out, to be able to execute on the night.
And I think that's been the real growth in Tupuvai's game. Like, he's taken on the calling of that line out, but also probably leading a lot of their defensive work. And we've seen that, like reading the pitches really early, putting them under pressure, thinking, well, if I do this, they're going to react like that, and I'll give myself the best chance to react on the ground. He's so quick on his feet to react. And also the lifters, they're on, man. They're getting a really good, clean boost lift, and these guys are springy. So they're putting these hookers under pressure. And Jip, as you know, as a hooker, when you've got a massive lift from those guys and they're boosting these springy guys, it's hard to throw over top, especially some of those shorter movement lineouts where they're going back. To get it over top of the guy in front, it is near on impossible.
Especially if there's two in the air, you know, you've got to drop it on a dime. But yeah, I just think, you know, you talk about Tupuvai. What I also like about, he had such a massive first part of this year, and statistically he was, you know, top tackler, top carrier a lot of the time. What I loved is the ball hasn't come his way. It's not that he's not there, he's not in his position. The ball hasn't come his way. He hasn't gone searching for it, because his body and the work he's done in previous games of the year is actually drawing attention, so the space has been created elsewhere, and he's not trying to, you know, force that 11 carry, 11 tackle game. You know, he's a 5 carry, 4 tackle, but a couple of steal. Like, he's got a massive role, and I feel like we've found a bit of gunga in our bench, and I know everyone's going to laugh because I'm going to identify 2 Blues players, but I think Ofa Tongapasi and Patrick Tuipulotu, although they would want to start, their role off the bench is becoming like a Malcolm Marks and those sorts of players that they are more impactful when there's tiring bodies and what they can do around the field.
What's Ofa doing, mate? Like, he's just like, it's like a new man.
I think he's been waiting for an opportunity, you know, like Ethan de Groot, you know, not getting selected, created the opportunity, and then he delivered when it mattered against England. So it you know, bought that trust, and then he's gone again. You know, that competition, and you know, you always say you don't want to give someone a crack, and he's taken it.
Mate, he hasn't he? Yeah, with both hands.
As I say, everyone expected Ireland to win. Their crowd is sitting on top of them. You know, they've, you know, gotten behind on the scoreboard. Then they get that try, but then it compounding errors, and you can just, it just squeezes you, and then it becomes about this. And once that sort of goes walkabout, it doesn't matter how physically gifted you are, it's tough to get back.
Yeah, and Crowley, I think, only had 12 touches, 12 carries.
She was.
That's not a lot for considering Sexton basically touched the ball every time they had it. It's quite a change, and I don't know what the story is.
It's a massive change for the players around as well. You know, you've got so used to knowing exactly the line you need to go, the tempo you need to go at the line, you know, almost knowing what he's going to do before he does it. But you can't make Johnny Sexton. You can't say you've got to be Johnny Sexton. You know, it's his team now, and surely they've made those adjustments. But sometimes, you know, he'll know exactly what he's trying to do, but it's the players around him just probably don't have that mojo and that connection just yet.
They've still got all the weapons there. It's just finding how to make that work with a new guy running the cutter. And I think in Jamison Gibson Park, they might look to play a little bit more off 9, because man, when he went, he looked so dangerous. Like, he is a super threat. But I think they've just got to figure out their game and how to manipulate again.
And they actually did that a lot when Sexton wasn't on the field. They came off Jamo a hell of a lot. Even who's the backup? Murray.
Yes,
Connor Murray. They do the
yep.
same off him, but he's got more of a tactical kicking game, contestable kicking. Jamo can have that running game. He looks for 50-22s, but they did change to that. But I think it's about letting Crowley know this is your team. And it is about everyone else adjusting around him, because you want him to just play on instinct and know that it's his. You know, but that does take time.
On that point, is the All Blacks now Damian McKenzie's team after that performance, Jip? Or is it Bowden Barrett's team?
Well, this is the thing. Like, I thought that was Damian's best performance. Like, and it's amazing that, you know, he wants that 10 jersey. And, you know, Bodie sort of came and grabbed it, and again, an opportunity to present itself. And he, under that guise and that opportunity, he's put his Damian mask on it. Like, it was almost like watching him play for the Chiefs. You know, like, it was like, he was like, okay, I've got nothing to lose. Like, I'm just going to go back to how I play. And had you asked me that question the week before, I would have said, you know, we'll get through this week and Bodie will come back in. I don't know now. It was a really, really telling clinical performance.
Definitely his best in the black jersey in terms of commanding what he wants.
Occasion.
Yeah, occasion. The big match that we've all been waiting to see Damian McKenzie take it by the scruff of the neck and go, this is my team,
Even
this is where
England,
I need to go.
that kicking, like the goal kicking, under pressure, like, I don't know, he just, it's sort of like you say with Offa. It's almost like everyone's calmed down and...
Couple of Guinness, that must be the secret, eh?
Maybe.
Couple of midweek Guinness and keep it on, Damo. Keep it right on.
Guinness zeros.
Not sure about that.
But it is interesting you talk about the kicks at goal, because we've seen a trend through this autumn series, haven't we? That, you know, last year, the year before that, everyone was like, we're going to a line-out drive. That is how rugby is played. We were going to score a try and no one's going to stop. Now the defences on the line-out drive have improved to such a point that everyone is now kicking goals. It's a massive shift in the way that you approach a game and everything that follows it, right?
Yeah, I think it's costing teams test matches though as well. Like, you have to get the balance right and understand what you're trying to achieve. Like, if you look at England, like, Marcus Smith took control of that last 20 minutes because they were chasing. Why couldn't they do that 20 minutes before and go to the corner and say, Marcus, you're making a mockery of the field and behind, get us some grummers through. Even if they don't get it, it's a goal line. I think, yes, there's an element like, let's build scoreboard pressure, but at some point you have to be able to pull trigger, not when you're in catch-up mode.
Yeah.
Because I think maybe like in the past, Southern Hemisphere sides, maybe not the Springboks as much, but like they had a formidable maul, so they probably went to the corner a little bit more. But I think we potentially overplayed the quick taps and trying to, you know, catch teams off guard. And the Northern Hemisphere sides have technically gone, you know, for the points, maybe barring the Irish. The Irish, when Sexton was there, did go to the corner a lot. But I feel like maybe they've got to meet in the middle somewhere. And I felt that's where New Zealand sort of got to. That was a very well-balanced approach on the weekend that worked.
Speaking of Marcus Smith, I was watching it, I should be shot for this, but the first thing I thought watching him, after considering how he'd been mucked around with Farrell and Ford and all these guys over the years, I thought, how did Rugby League never take this guy? Because the way he kicks in behind, the way he runs at the line, like, he would be an outstanding Rugby League player.
I love the cut of his jib, eh?
That's the best I've seen him play, though.
Yeah.
Like, man, he just took that game
really
by
like
the scruff of
it,
the neck. Like, apart from I don't want to take away from the Wallabies, but him as an individual, and I know he bit in on that last tackle, but that was a clinic.
Yeah, no, he was very, very good and a classy footballer, man. Like both, like everything, you know, the triple threat, eh? Like just lovely passing.
Some of those grabbers though, he's like
the short kicking game. Yeah, that's
and
the
off the
deft
back
touch.
sidestep.
Yeah.
Like he's literally sidestepped
Beautiful
into
feet,
it.
hey? Yeah.
And it pops up, and I'm just like, that is just.
I thought when he went through multiple times, Marcus Smith, I did think to myself, sometimes it feels like he's a Kiwi. And I thought, if I say that on the show, I'm going to look like so arrogant. But he does. You
said it, Ross. You said it.
He kind of feels like an Aussie or a Kiwi in the way he plays
but
football.
that is why it's taken so long for them to give him the keys.
Yeah.
Because it just hasn't been a natural aspect of their game. And that's why I feel like he gets suppressed. It's like he does a couple of moments of brilliance and it's like, keep your powder dry, we'll just keep you back. But whereas don't suppress him, like, go to the corner. Just please go to the corner, England. Like, you will win test matches.
Like, trigger.
Every time you go
into
the 22, you're coming away with points. Like, I just don't understand why they don't back themselves a little bit more.
Yeah, and saying that, we're talking about Damian McKenzie, you know, and his natural enthusiasm and curbing that.
We're talking about curbing it because it's, you know, normally the other way.
We let it go,
I'm saying a balance. Let's meet each in the middle. And I don't, you know, necessarily care if England win or lose. It's just, I feel like they're doing themselves a disservice because they look so good on attack.
Joey cares. Joey would rather they lost.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Like that first try, the way they kept the ball aligned from that live break, that was their whole forward pack, popping, passing, cutting them south, down the sideline. Mate.
Yeah, we haven't seen
glorious. That was just beautiful.
No, you're right.
When you
Imagine
look at
him
the wide view,
and Joseph Suali'li connecting.
Yeah.
That would be special.
Gee whiz.
He's a freak.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about him because, I mean, obviously the Wallabies got that win. But this is a guy who hasn't played first-class rugby, he hasn't played since school. Arguably the best rugby debut ever. And given the context of that, I mean, it's insane how good this guy is.
Yeah, but I think if you listen to Joe Schmidt, who's a hard man to please. He goes, he used the word meticulous preparation. Yeah. He goes, there wasn't a question in his mind why he doesn't throw him straight out there. And in centre of all places,
yeah.
I know they
think that was a surprising thing, Jack.
That's a tough
cool.
place to
Especially defensively, right?
Yeah.
First game.
And England's midfield's very strong.
I think everyone in the world was going, what, centre? You know, we thought maybe chuck him on the wing, but wow.
Even fullback, like, man, he just made light work of it. And it just shows you, and I know we talk about it, and sometimes this is a great example, is preparation will dictate your performance. And the guy clearly does the work. He hasn't played first-class rugby, but let's be honest, he's played nearly 100 NRL games.
Yeah.
He knows the pressure cooker. He's been to finals footy. You know, he's a man for the occasion. And you talk about not celebrating, he doesn't even smile. Like, he does some of the most ridiculous things ever seen on a football field, and you can hardly. I think
that ability in the air and in the offload, but it wasn't just a willy-nilly. Like, he'd spotted it, you know, and like it was just like, well, nonchalant, all good. That's just what I do.
Little
over the top, like all of that stuff. Him and Ikitau, whole left, they keep developing that combination.
Ikitau's come of age this year.
Far out.
He's been a match winner for them, especially when they went to RG and created a lot of opportunities in attack. He is, and he's sort of, I suppose, taking the pressure as a first receiver a lot of time off Lolosio, which is allowing him to play that role that we see him with the Brumbies out the back with time and space. And you know, Ikitau's an unsung hero.
Now, we've had a few emails come in, and let's talk a little bit about this celebration thing that we referred to a couple of times. I got an email through from Joe Smith, and Joe, we're going to give you the Players Sports Ball off the back
Joe
of this.
Schmidt.
No, Joe
Schmidt.
Joe Schmidt.
Joe Schmidt, thank you for emailing in. Yes, you did a good job with Sua'ali'i. No, Joe Smith. Joe Smith. He says, I've always been so proud and supportive of the Kiwis playing their trades in other international teams around the world. But the way Bundy Aki and James Lowe reacted and chahooed for low-level results was almost cringeworthy. Bundy Aki tackled an All Black in our end goal towards the end and celebrated like he had won the game. The same for James Lowe's 50-22 in the last 10 minutes. Chahooing. Okay, it's an interesting point he makes. Like, what is the line here? Within a team, when you look at your celebrations, do you guys say, okay, this is what we will celebrate and this is what we don't, so we don't look like chumps at the end?
James Lowe's always been a big moment, loves to celebrate it. Like, that's just his personality. And I think that was a big moment.
I still think it was a big moment.
What a kick that
Could
was.
have been
8 minutes.
Like, massive, right?
Yeah.
Huge. And the skill to be able to do that,
ridiculous.
like hugging that sideline, like, that was phenomenal. And I actually, I love the theatre of that. I do enjoy it, but I do love the fact that he was doing it on a losing side as well. You know, like, you do laugh. And as an opposition, you'd be going, keep carrying on like that. And I can imagine if it was Steve Hansen, he'd be saying, listen here, Joe, it's not bloody hot dogging like that, mate. When you kick the ball 15-22, you know, head down. But I actually enjoy that. It adds to the theatre of the game, but you don't need to
stifle someone's personality.
Yeah.
And Bundy's always been like that as well, right?
But I do think they wanted it. That was too much.
That was the point, right? You were making earlier, Jeff, around the emotion.
I feel like they just wanted it too much.
100%.
That was, But I mean,
this is going to be the moment.
I was massively surprised when Porter made that tackle and Jamison got the turnover, how much he reacted. I was like, whew. Like, it was like, you know, game's over and you're going to take the 3 and win it. Like, so they had obviously built something up there and felt that was a weapon to themselves, because, I mean, there is elements where you say that can feed the opposition quite nicely as well.
With the All Blacks obviously led the haka with Rico, you know, you kind of felt that there was going to be a little bit of that, but the All Blacks flushed it.
Yeah.
Like, what would Steve say? Flush it down and move on?
Flush it down and move on.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we're done with it. Why are you bringing
I hope he's not watching this, lady.
Mate. He likes my impersonation. He likes my impersonation. Don't you, Steve? I know you do. I love the theatre. Like All Blacks leant into it. Ireland led into it. Both walk towards each other. Like, rugby needs more of this. We need to tell more, show more of this stuff, because it engages the fans. Rico, it's so un-All Black like feeding the beast of the Johnny Sexton thing, and then doubling down on it afterwards. Put that in your book. I'm like,
you knew it was coming.
I'm going, keep it on, Rico. You're outstanding, standing ovation, mate. Like, that stuff is to me awesome for the game.
It is, but you just shows how fickle we are.
100%.
As fans. Yeah, on one hand, James Lowe kicks this and they go on and win the game. They're going, mate, what a moment, but they don't. And do you know what I mean? Like,
it can, without a doubt,
it can change very.
You can change in an instant, but I think in that
the less risk-adverse personalities would just be. It's not like this. It's just like
you've skipped Rico.
Yeah.
You trying to temper that?
Oh,
good luck
you wouldn't want to.
No,
you just wouldn't want to, because that's what makes him great.
Exactly, mate.
And I think the one thing I loved is when he was leading the haka is like. Haka is something even at the Blues, like he goes full noise. Like it actually means a hell of a lot to him and his heritage and his family, a lot more than people probably understand. Like that would have been a massive moment for him, and to do it on that stage at that ground, I do think it fed the beast. But I think those coaches are smart enough to know that he's a beast that you can feed.
But I think that the emotion on the flip side of that shows the growth in Rieko Ioane.
Massively.
Like for him to do that, it would have got caught up in the emotion and gone over the top, given away, but then just delivered a rock solid performance. Hats off to him, and keep the banter flowing. Keep it going.
It is interesting as well with the coaches, because in the past that would have been subdued, wouldn't it? Because traditional New Zealand rugby approach is barely celebrate, just forget about it. This isn't that big a deal. Let's not showboat. But these coaches are about building narrative. They're always talking about building narrative and allowing that narrative to flow and be. So it's quite a big step in the coaching ranks to allow that to happen.
Don't you think, though, the one thing I like about it is it resembles how we react when you're watching it with your mates. It's just like to beat Ireland, like it's, you're high-fiving, you're man-hugging, you're absolutely through the roof. And it almost... you look back and you don't sort of see their celebration at the time if you're doing all that, but then you look back and see the replays and you think they just resemble people that just are so dedicated and desperate for the All Blacks to do well. And as a player and as a fan, I can get behind that, massively. I like seeing that sort of emotion and that care and that, that sort of openness to show that love and affection for that moment.
Yeah, give me more personality, give me them true selves, and I'm just loving it. Yeah, keep it on.
That's why the Irish thing is such a big thing in New Zealand. We had big viewership for that game. We had bigger viewership a couple of years ago for the Irish thing, because while the South African fans in the comments section didn't like the fact that we even questioned last week whether the South African rivalry is the biggest rivalry right now, that's a very respectful rivalry. You don't have this animosity going back and forth. So it doesn't bring that theatre in the same way as when you've got a bitter rivalry. When you've got bad blood and the way that churns you inside and gets you going. I'm not saying that the South African rivalry isn't still number one, because it probably is, but there's something about this rivalry between these teams that stokes something good.
It's the tradition, right, of the South African rivalry. That's what we love. The traditions of the game, 100%. But I think there's been some instances against Ireland, the Peter O'Mahony instance down here, them being recent instance.
It's recency bias.
And then it's the bullishness that they went into that World Cup, and then us tipping them up, and all of those little things Brodie Retallick telling Rieko Ioane doing the same to Johnny Sexton. All these things stoke that rivalry, which is. There's two small little countries that are really, really good at rugby that want to be the small guys, the giant killers. That's us and Ireland. And I just think two super passionate countries as well about rugby. And we know the Irish, they're probably a little bit more bullish than what we are. We're still pretty conservative. We're really confident in our All Blacks. But they are actually outwardly...
Well, you've just got to look at Conor McGregor as probably a good example of Irish personality. He is just going to tell you how good he is, and I don't mind that. That's coming, so you've got to accept that. But I do agree. I think the rivalry has probably brought certain personalities out of that All Black side that are also very similar to Conor McGregor, and they want to let you know how and when they're going to get one over you. So, I think the best thing is we're talking about multiple rivalries. You know, could have we said this 10, 15 years ago? No.
Yeah.
Probably not. So I think that's the exciting thing for international game is you sort of don't know who's going to win or lose at the moment.
Joe Smith, the Player Sports Ball is coming your way. If you're New Zealand based and you're a supporter of ARP, please go along to the Player Sport website. You can go to the QR code down here and put in this code, RugbyPod20, when you go to the checkout. You get 20% off All Black supporters gear, balls and boots. So fill your boots, get in there and get into that. We've got another question. Another interesting question based on what we've seen over for the last few weeks from Damian Jones in the UK. He says, when Geordie Barrett was penalised for running a blocking line, the Irish commentary said he shouldn't have been because he didn't change his line. I believe that was Brian O'Driscoll saying that. It was Mac Hansen who drew the penalty by running into Geordie Barrett. I'm not sure I totally agree with that as a summation. I think we saw him change directions to some degree. But he says, what is the actual law here regarding the escorts and running back to protect the guy up in the air? Law 9.4 says a player must not intentionally prevent an opponent from having the opportunity to play the ball other than competing for possession. But the new law interpretation from World Rugby says, whereas it was fine before, as long as a player didn't change their line, now any retreating defender slowing down with an attacking chaser behind them while in the vicinity of a defensive receiver might risk a penalty.
It's also the old adage, head over the shoulder. I mean, that's a dead cue that you're trying to... You know, so, like, I think if you... what they're trying to get at is create opportunity for attack, more attack. The only issue I have with it, and you saw, look, players will adjust. You saw the Springboks struggle against Scotland a lot around this rule, and it was their first sort of crack at it, and they'll get better for it. But I think my only concern is it is going to bring the contest back, which is, that's fine, but man, if this player that's on the attacking side that's chasing the kick gets it wrong and cleans these legs out, my only issue is, you know, does there have to be a severe injury for us to, you know, like I didn't mind the escorts. I thought like there was an actual skill in it. That, you know, you had to be
I thought they were doing a good job, like you said.
Working hard off the ball. And,
they officiated it well when it was blatantly obvious. I'm a little bit like...
I know they're trying to get into the NRL big catches and probably from a spectacle point of view, but it's just a different way of kicking in the NRL that they kick on the 6 and, you know, it's a lot flatter, and where this is trying to get, you know, territory time for you to maybe smack the player or contest, but then you get in that halfway house and you go, am I contesting? Am I? And then legs get taken, and it's, you know, it can be pretty severe.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I've never heard anyone say yes, more box kicks, please. Yeah. Has anyone ever uttered that? More box kicks, please?
Apart from Aaron Smith.
Yeah, that's right.
Probably Rusty Erasmus.
Cam Roy
there's more coming off 10. The crossfield contestable kick. You can see this law. England did it really well against us off Marcus Smith, and I feel like we did a little bit better, and it's actually something we should use more on Caleb Clark's wing, because he's a specialist in the air, but. Yeah, it's players will adjust and there'll be less penalties, and referees, as we always know, will stop focusing on it because it's a new thing. But it's just at what cost?
Yeah.
I think South Africa, though, you know, a couple of their crossfield kicks, like that, if we can lean more towards the flatter options.
The Roos kick to Mapimpi.
Oh, that was very tidy.
Yeah.
Very tidy.
Very nice. They're clever with the way that they did that. Like, you don't often see a kick into a space like that.
No, but I mean, even his first one, they did the 4-man line-out maul, and because of their maul threat, I mean, Finn Russell was basically on the 15. It was like there was no one can cover that. They were so tight in there because you're worried about the maul or the trick plays, that they were very smart in identifying how tight they were, that they went to those kicks a lot of the time.
Tony Brown.
Yeah, that's true.
That's Brownie to a T. You know, find it, they'll think this, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Oh, if they don't do that, we're still good enough to to combat it. You know, that's just.
That's what I thought at half time when Victor Matfield and Skulk Berger were like, why are we doing so many 4-man lineouts? All I thought is Tony Brown, mate. There's only one man that loves a 4-man lineout, and that is Tony Brown. Like, they were fuming. They're like, go to your 7, and you got 3 options. And Victor Matfield was just absolutely fuming. He was like, our lineout's a disgrace. Because they're losing so much ball, but it is because they're trying to manipulate their defence to open up these attacking opportunities, but it's coming at a cost of a 98% operating line-out down to about 75.
Put us in a time warp to 2016. Were you guys running 4-man line-outs on the way to the
Do you not remember the Lima Sopoana?
The back kick, all sorts. The long over to the 20, shorten the
Don't worry, he
mark,
took
all
them to
of that.
Tasman.
Yeah.
Tasman then were the 4-man line-out specialists.
Hey, how good's a 4-man? We shouldn't have falls.
Victor's not a fan.
Victor, the one step back or the one step forward, that's him all day.
So the key there is you've got to have 2 jumping options to keep it interesting within a 4-man liner. Is that the key?
Yeah, well,
Speed, slips, double
slips. You can
slips.
have someone insert from halfback, all sorts
There's
of.
quite a lot of options.
You can go over long, creep them forward, and then go over the 15. Yeah, it's a great line out, and if you've got a shorter pack but a really mobile, quick pack, that's when it's at your benefit and you can speed up the game. That was essentially why Brownie brought it in, because we're never going to compete physically with a South African side or a Blues for that instance. But what we could bring is speed. So that's Brownie's thought process around it.
Yeah.
Well, one point Victor made, which is probably against, like, I think Brownie would agree with him, is he goes, I don't understand why we're so slow to set on our ball. He goes, it just walks into the...
Tired.
He goes...
It's got to be a... Sam.
But even, like, Bongi and Malcolm, they wipe the ball about 9... it's so opposite of most teams. Yeah, I don't think it is tired. I think they genuinely just are so used to being the best at the line-out.
Yeah. It's not going to matter what shape they're in.
They just... But they're not used to this now. The 4-man is... Teams have been able to defend it.
Yeah.
I think I agree with Victor when he said it. I just wouldn't mind them speeding things up a little bit.
Sure.
Tired. I'll message on us. Hey, Victor, tired.
Victor, I think they're tired, mate. She's buying some time.
My memory of Victor is that he'd be walking from 30 metres out to the line out. The moment he got there, he was up and gone.
I sort of felt that as well, but his message was when they did a 4-man, it was about getting there quick.
Right.
It wasn't about every line out, because he was saying, let's go to a 6 or a 7, and that's when you'd see him, take his time and believe there are 3 or 4 options. But he was saying, if you're going to do a 4-man, you've got to get there quicker.
There was more innovation from the Scots. The double croc roll was that was innovative. That was new. I thought they were actually lucky to cop 1 card. I thought both blokes did exactly the same thing.
I struggle with that though. Like a red card, it was. I just didn't see what. Like, if you look at when they had the examples with the law being brought in, it was blatant, and you're
on the neck
swinging,
and all that,
and you're landing straight on,
and it could dislocate a knee or pop a knee.
I almost felt like he saw he was doing it, and he was like, oh, but it was too late. I get the yellow. Just when there's a red, when you see when it was initially brought in the clips they provided, it was nothing like that. But it is hard because they're trying to get out of the game, so they're trying to send a message, and I certainly wouldn't want my knee, being bulldozed from the outside in.
Both knees.
I just felt like they both just were on the outside compared to what. There was even one in the All Blacks 15 game that it got cited for Delaney, but thankfully they saw common sense and it wasn't even penalised because he did what they actually suggest is you pull them back towards you, and he had under the torso. But it's definitely something that's watched, and when something's watched, normally there's going to be debate about how, if it's red or yellow. Yellow penalty I get, but that for a red, that was pretty harsh.
Yeah.
Jet, what did you make of the Scottish kit? Did you like it? I thought it was horrific.
Yeah. At least it wasn't a jersey clash.
It was very un-Scotland though.
Yeah.
Well, it was like, remember when they did the orange one?
Yeah, the
orange
one.
Horrific.
Yeah.
No, just well off topic.
No, it's good. It's a good topic. I like it.
I do like a bit of light blue, though, you know.
Yeah, but it felt very Titans.
It was like
relish.
gradient. It was very gradient. It was like white to light blue.
You're at home.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
It looked like I had designed it on Photoshop. Like it really wasn't a.
I don't think there'd be too
Not flattering for Finn Russell either.
Yeah, it's true though. At least it was light. Like, how often do you see a jersey change and actually it makes more of a clash than the original one?
Yeah, true.
Like, at least they do something out there crazy. Okay, let's have a look at the games to come this weekend, and let's start with England, South Africa.
Doesn't get any easier for the English, does it?
It's tough. Do you see England? I mean, they've been in the games the last 2 weeks. They've been there with a shot.
South Africa just know how to win.
Yeah, it took the words right out of my mouth. They just find a way
This
to
year,
get the job done. In any situation,
they haven't been vintage,
Yeah,
but man, they
any
win.
situation, they figure it out. And
When the pressure comes on,
to Jibber's point again, the English need to lean into actually play some rugby to put this South African side under pressure, because if you play them at their game where you think you're just going to accumulate points and beat them, they're better than anyone in the world at doing that. So I think if England are ever going to do it and break the shackles, take them off, this could be the catalyst game for it. But I just think South Africa know how to win in too many different scenarios. They'll be too strong.
yeah. And I just think, look, they rested a few players. Peter Steff will come back in. Sua'ali'i, Ebenezer, I don't know, he just seems to get better every game. Like, you know, it might be a bold statement, you know, even though I was fanboying Victor earlier. Is he going to go down as one of the greatest Springbok players ever? Like, he is just, like, the performance he put on was massive. So you go through that side and I don't know how you can ever pick against them. It just doesn't seem logically possible. Even when they play poorly, they still win.
Yeah. No, you don't want to. If you're going to the bookie, you're not going to be necessarily.
No, well, you're not going to get
real
good odds for them, but yeah.
Yeah. Right. I'm not going to go through all the games because there's plenty on this weekend. Let's jump through to the Ireland-Argentina game, Joey. Argentina put it on Italy on the weekend, put 50 points on away from home. Do Argentina, on form, have a chance of beating Ireland in Ireland?
I don't think so. I think Ireland will figure things out pretty quickly at home, that they'll be wounded. Argentina obviously will be buoyant after that one.
But see, this is their problem.
And
when they have a great game,
they get to them.
Don't back it
they
up.
They never been great at that, and I'm sure they'll be aware of that. Like, I remember when they played. Well, it was just, don't have to look that far back. Beat the All Blacks in Wellington, and then the next week up in England.
Same as against Australia.
Didn't front up.
They didn't front up against Aussie,
and that was
next
at home.
Next game they won by like 60 points.
And that's at home.
And you're just like,
what's going on with them?
And had it been a tie, just a last-minute win or a loss against Italy, I actually would give them more chance, because for some reason that galvanised
that steals them.
If they could just. But I think if they are going to win, they have to go there and play their game. And when they've scored those massive amounts of points, it's offloads, it's, you know, really just wearing down that breakdown, getting penalties, piggybacking up the field, you know, quick taps. The Argentinian style that, you know, makes you nervous because you don't actually know what they're doing. They probably don't know what they're doing, but it's when they're at their best.
Yeah.
But I will pick Ireland.
Okay. We just touched on Wales, Australia. Joey?
Yeah, Aussies, I think. The test, it's the same thing as the Argies. How do they back up? What are we going to see from them? Are we going to see as polished performance? I hope so, for Australians' sake. I just think Wales is just too far off the pace to even compete. I think it's going to be a tough night at the office for the Welsh, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so we can pump up Super Rugby and get rid of the narrative. It doesn't prepare people for Super Rugby.
Yeah.
Go on the Wallabies.
Yeah.
Get in behind them.
Super
and of course,
Rugby's preparing legends.
somehow New Zealand's going to France and we haven't talked about it at all yet because there's been so many talking points. Let's get into this. We saw France put it on Japan, despite the fact that France didn't have a lot of the statistics going the way, didn't have a lot of possession, anything. It was just that the Japanese continued to not be able to tackle.
Yeah.
Like 66% tackling.
Oh, it's the same when they played the All Blacks.
Yeah.
I don't know what their defensive system's up to. It's just, it's concerning. But, I mean, then you look at Ireland at 75%. So I've got a real complex with defensive percentages at the moment. But, yeah, look, I think it's going to be another tight one. Like, I think we'd be naive to think going there against the French, who's a side that, probably didn't get what they wanted at World Cup time, and there'll be a bit of, what as Shag used to say, the old rock under the towel over summer. So they'll see this as a big scalp they need to get. If the All Blacks focus on that calm, composed approach, I think they've found a bit of mojo at the right time of the year. And I mean, this is the final big test. They get through this one, and I'm not being disrespectful to Italy. It's just a reality. This is... They've got through 2 big mountains, but I think I would have said last week's game was the biggest mountain, but I think with how clinical that performance, the expectation, especially with this coaching group, is they'll go another gear.
Yeah.
I think the type 5 of the All Blacks are going to come under some real heat from this French side, especially in France. Like, they just grow an arm and a leg. So our set piece probably isn't going to get... it won't be as dominant as it was against Ireland. So I think it's going to be a real grind. And as we know, if the French get their tails up, especially in that department, man, they're a formidable beast. And with that French flair, Dupont at home, like, there's a whole lot of factors that are going to play into it. Really tight test match, but on with Jip, I just think this All Black side just seemed to be
penalties,
coming of age. Like, they just they seem to be getting back to that way of finding a way to win. I would like to see them not play as much as we are in our own half, or taking some better options, because we know that this French team, how much they kick and how well they pressure that side of the game. We've got to be really, really smart in how we counter-attack. So it's going to be a hell of a test match, man. And for this coaching group, massive, right? Like, they've come over 2 massive hurdles to start this end of year. Well, the final bit of the end. If they can get 3, wow.
But they've started to turn the public narrative as well
Yeah.
now, and this could just seal it, and set them up for next season. But just like set piece is crucial, the discipline. Every time the All Blacks have a better penalty count, or better penalty count than the opposition, they win games.
Yeah.
And that's what decides these test matches. That's what decided the game against Ireland, and it will decide once again this weekend.
And that scrum, I think we haven't talked much about the scrum, but the work that Lomax and Williams are doing in that scrum, because so often it's been at scrum time where the penalties have been conceded when things aren't going well. Geez, that scrum chipper.
I've got to say, those Lucies are doing a fantastic job of slipping up too. Like, not always legal, but like, if it starts to turn in, that you'll see the Lucies slip up and get right under and almost push the hip of the opposition's prop to either straighten them out because we're dominant, or follow them in to try and create that pitch, especially if it's a loose head. So, and the big fellas behind are doing a great job. Like, a scrum is an 8-man job. Like, yes, the props get penalised, but so much of it's timing and that connection from the back 5 to the front 3, and transitioning that weight through. But it's a simple aspect of the game if you've got confidence in it, and I think that remains.
It was an Ireland scrum that has a lot of experienced guys in it, and they were
Furlong
holding on by
Furlong not being there, I think that would have put a Suffle, cross that out, because he would have had a real crack at a Suffle, and I think that's a real growth in a Suffle's game. His set piece. I mean, bar that ridiculous call from Nick Berry when no one went up and he got called not straight, which is just a crap
But again,
decision.
it was another moment. He didn't get emotional about it.
He was just gone.
He's come of age.
But you go, the core role of especially at Test match, Chip, you know how important it is. Like, he was rock solid, and you can't underestimate how important the hookers are in terms of being able to manipulate and stop what opposition props are trying to do to manipulate that scrum. So, Suffle was outstanding, and obviously I think Cody will come back into the starting role. But man, what a guy to add to your bomb squad. Our version of it.
With confidence as well.
Yeah, massive confidence. Man of the match performance.
Yeah, and that pass.
Yeah, good.
It was like a 20-metre pass.
Loved how he said
square hip.
I was thinking of Damian, but I thought, Will's pretty good at finishing, so I better give it to him.
Yeah, that was
You'd
solid.
back him too from that far.
Yeah. And he's played almost 2 80-minute games on the trot. Like,
phenomenal way.
That's for his fitness, considering the size of the man.
Yeah.
There's a lot of body to carry around that long.
Power.
It's more the physical nature. Like international rugby probably isn't as expansive as Super Rugby, like in terms of pace and speed of the game. So that he is built for international rugby, like that power athlete, as Joey referred to. But he physically is never going to struggle on a rugby field.
Yeah. Right, so how do the All Blacks counteract DuPont, who's obviously going to play a lot of 9? He had 18 carries, 7 defenders beaten on the weekend. Like, what do you do to eliminate this guy from taking charge of the game?
Good luck. Look, I think it's going to come down to the quality of tackle. First and foremost, like if the All Blacks can get double shoulders on and dominate that breakdown where it takes away a lot of that speed of ruck, that then limits the running threat a lot of DuPont. We know how good his kicking game is though, Jip. That's the thing that they're going to have to be really, really accurate at in terms of putting pressure on. We know that they'll take a lot of time and they'll be really well organised, but we still need to pressure that kick because when he is under pressure, he's just like anyone. He's going to feel it, but he has generally been able to get away with it a lot. So for me, quality of tackle, first and foremost. For the All Blacks, they need to be really, really accurate in that area and trying to slow the ruck ball down, because we know if he can get an inch, he's going to take a mile. Like, he's that good at sensing an opportunity.
Oh, and I think you're right. Like, as silly as it sounds, it's like you're not going to stop him. Like, he's going to have an impact on the game. It's just how much. And I think, although it's quality of tackle, I think it's quality of decision-making of the players around that breakdown. Am I an actual chance to slow this ball down, or am I not? Because sometimes you're so fixated on slowing the ball down at the breakdown that creates the opportunity, because you've just spent a defender in there and you've done nothing to it, and DuPont will take that gap you've just come from, or he'll draw this defender in and pop a short ball. So that decision-making around a defensive breakdown, I think, is just as important as the tackle. If they can get that dominance in the tackle and then have, licence at the ball, and if they don't have the option, just don't go in there. Like, if we waste defenders, he may not get us here, but he'll get us out there with a cross-field kick or something like that.
Right, so we started this with, this is supposed to be a picking thing. Let's get into what do you think will happen?
All Blacks, by a whisker.
Whisker.
I think Damian McKenzie, again, will, off the tee, will be the difference.
I think discipline will decide this, and that'll be penalty kicks.
Yeah, right. They've got a very good kicker, so you don't want to get your discipline wrong.
No, well, honestly, I bet you whoever wins this test will have least amount of penalties.
Yeah.
It's just the way it will be.
Right.
So can you ask Jip just who's going to play at 10? They're both.
How do you mean?
Who's playing, Bodie or?
Look, we all know the All Black adage is you can't lose your spot. So I think Bodie will come back in.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's just the smarter option, because when you've had a knock, if I know he'll probably be 100 if he's out there, but it's just, why risk it? Like, get him out there, get him into the game. Damian can come on and play his role later, either for him or for Will move to the wing.
Right. So what would you do, and what do you think they will do?
I think Damian will start, and Bodie will be the finisher. I'm going the opposite way.
Right.
Yeah.
And is that what you would do yourself?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he's earned the right.
Okay. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Okay, thank you very much all for joining us once again on the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Thank you for sending in your emails. Please send more of them to aotearoarugbypod@sky.co.nz. Get into the YouTube's comment section as well. We'll look at your questions there. So appreciate all your contributions to the show. Thank you everyone who helps put the show together as well. And we'll see you next week after, maybe an All Blacks victory. We'll see how they go in France, 100% an All Blacks victory. The jury is poking. Kia pai te wiki. Catch you next week.